My wife and I are both in our mid-30s and have a teen son. I've been a stay-at-home dad all his life, while my wife has been more hands-off due to a somewhat demanding job. Still, some basic facts that anyone with even a surface-level knowledge of our kid knows: that he's a good boy. He gets great grades and is well-behaved. He's maybe a little spoiled, but aren't they all? My point is, I've rarely had to step in and deliver any real punishments, thanks to open and consistent dialogue between the two of us. I have a longtime friend who plays in a decently popular local band. He's a father figure to my son, and they also have a very close bond thanks to similar interest. My son has always been the artsy type, and he's so excited when my friend comes over because it means he can show him the latest guitar he's added to his collection or a new riff he's learned. During friend's recent visit, he mentioned going on tour soon, and my son was intrigued. After pressing for details, he came to me later and asked if he could go with him on his fall break. He had plenty of promises at the ready that he would listen to whatever friend said, be on his best behavior, and never ask for anything again. After talking it out, I gave him a maybe. I reached out to friend for his thoughts, and he was all for it. I figured he wouldn't mind since he has a son around my kid's age who goes on tour with him occasionally. Another thing my son had mentioned while pleading his case to me. I asked my wife, and she agreed after a very brief conversation. Fast forward to the beginning of last week, when he got packed up and set to leave. My wife asked where he was going. I reminded her, and she said she thought I was joking. I had no idea what part of it sounded like a joke, but she claimed my son wasn't allowed to go. I eventually persuaded her after our child went to his room near tears. When he arrived home yesterday, I had never seen him so happy. He got to help the roadies set up for the shows. He got led into bars. He intentionally didn't wash off one of the X's on the back of his hands, just so he could come home with it and show me. And friend was singing his praises over how helpful he was. A few hours later, my son made a social media post compiling photos from his time on tour. The long caption included gems like, "This almost didn't happen. Thanks, Mom." And, "Friend spent a lot of his free time with me, unlike my mom." This led to a pretty big argument where my wife demanded he takes it down upon being alerted to the post's existence. He refused, so she turned to me and asked me to talk to him. I refused. I told her that while I didn't think what he was doing was right, it was coming from somewhere, and that somewhere was a place in which he was feeling unheard and ignored by her. She's been ignoring me since. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. Of course your wife is ignoring you. You're supporting your son, disrespecting your wife publicly because of a simple misunderstanding between you two about the tour. Your son is a young teen. Yes, there'll be plenty of times when he's upset with either of you and will want to vent, but you just told him that it's okay to passively aggressively post those emotional and hurtful words publicly. You just supported him in hurting your wife instead of teaching your son how to handle those emotions healthily and respectfully. I wouldn't be surprised if you always play cool friend to your son and force your wife to always be the bad cop. Hard disagree. OP is not the idiot. My dad ignored me and treated me like a second thought my whole life. If he did pay attention to me, it was being told no or getting scolded. Every time my mom just backed him up, it made me think that I deserved to be treated like that. Parents should not always back up the other. That's a toxic mindset. Ever occur to you to teach your son to talk about his issues in person, then slam her on social media? Why can't you tell him to delete it and address the hurt behind the post with him? I'd be heartbroken if I were her for that level of disrespect from my own family. Women can't seem to win. Stay home, get criticized for not working. Work a demanding job, get criticized for abandoning your children. You are the idiot for teaching your son to make passive-aggressive social media posts instead of facing problems head-on with honest, open conversation. You're not helping your kid. You're failing him. I 100% agree. That's disrespectful, considering that your wife is the sole breadwinner, responsible for clothing, feeding, and housing both of you. Really curious about what you do for hours each week while your son is at school and doing teen stuff. Maybe if you were working too, your wife would feel more comfortable having a work-life balance that involves less work and more time with her son. Update: I am not encouraging my son to air our dirty laundry on social media. I don't think the first move should be to tell him to delete it when there is legitimate hurt motivating what he's saying. We're the parents and we can't move on impulse based on our feelings. It might be the gut reaction to ask him to delete them, but instead I want us to take a pause and come to him with empathy and understanding, where we discuss the matter together and help him decide what's best. As many of you say, this is a teachable moment and not one that can be easily impressed by him by just saying, delete the post, and not reinforcing the why, along with more positive ways to express himself. And please save your get a job comments. I plan to once my son gets his license. However, even if I didn't plan on rejoining the workforce, there's nothing wrong with former stay-at-home parents who choose to be homemakers. My wife and I mutually agreed on this dynamic, and she prefers working. This is not a productive addition to the conversation. A few days ago, my kids found a little bunny and brought it home, and they were begging us to keep it. But we can't keep a wild rabbit, and they already have several pets. The bunny was big enough to fend for herself, and I tried to nicely tell my kids that it needed to go back home to its family. They were sad but agreed to take it back. However, I was busy with work and couldn't go with them, so my wife went. I told her to take the bunny to some thorn bushes at the end of the property and let it go there, because that's the safest place to do it. We live in a country area ripe with predators. Well, I went back to work, but a little while later, my kids came running back into the house, loudly crying with my wife trailing after and trying to calm them down and tell them that it wasn't so bad. I asked what happened, and my eldest said that Mama made them let the bunny go in the middle of the yard, and a hawk took it. They even described the poor bunny's screams. I was mortified, and then angry at my wife for not letting it go the way I'd advised. She defended herself and said it was just a bunny. The kids will get over it. But I said that that was wrong, and I warned her of predators, and now our kids had to see that poor bunny get carried away by a hawk. So our kids shut themselves in their rooms and stopped talking to their mother for days. And when she tries to speak to them, they call her the bunny killer. I've tried to mediate, but my kids are still mad, and I'm still mad at my wife for how things went down. She's angry with me for not having her back, and said as husband and wife, we're always supposed to support one another. But we got into an argument where I pointed out numerous times that she's not had my back. She started crying too and went off to our room to pout. I think I screwed up now. So a friend told me to ask here, am I the idiot? Edit: I understand hawks need to eat too, and they are all over our area. I just didn't want my kids to see something so young. They are preschoolers. I grew up a country boy and my wife was a city girl. And when I was growing up, in any similar situation with a wild critter caught, we'd try to let it go in a place where it would have a fighting chance. Not the idiot. You warned her specifically that there were predators that would try to take it when it was released. You predicted that this could happen, but your wife ignored it, and it happened. Now she should be equally horrified that that happened in front of your kids and apologize for it going down the way it did. She didn't summon the hawk, but it sounds like you live in an area where it didn't need to be summoned. Yeah, it starts out with just a bunny, and then the kids are being carried away by hawks. The only way your wife has a chance of earning your children's trust and respect is by owning up to her failure. She failed that baby bunny 100%. She needs to acknowledge this before her children and accept their rightful judgment. It's just a bunny, get over it? That sounds like a perfectly okay thing to say when your kids are crying. Jesus. I get the whole united front thing, but this is not about your kids neglecting their chores or getting a bad grade. Though it's nature, seeing those things at a young age can be very traumatic, and chasing them around saying they'll get over it, it's not okay. Sorry, but your wife is the idiot in this, and she has to know she was wrong. Otherwise, why would she be mad? I have 2 younger sisters, teen and nearly adult. They came to visit my husband and me on what was supposed to be a 5-week trip. Unfortunately, it had to end early after they were caught following my husband while he was having dinner with a client. I told them they had to leave immediately because I could tell my husband was close to exploding, And even though they kept begging me to hear them out and let them stay, I wouldn't. So I called our dad to let him know they would be coming home early and why, which didn't go over well. My stepmother wanted me to let them stay until the morning so they would fly back in the daytime, but I told her it wasn't possible and they had to leave immediately. I'm supposed to be visiting soon, but my sisters have told our dad that they don't want to see me, and my stepmother said that I wasn't welcome in her house after what I did to them. My husband was so angry because the client was the one who noticed them taking pictures of them, and when he confronted them, they were rude to her and to him. Am I the idiot? Is it possible this client is an attractive woman and they thought he was cheating on you and were trying to gather evidence? This sounds like something teen sisters could do, no? Still, I feel there's pertinent info missing here. This is immediately why I thought they'd be following him. And again, while inappropriate, we are talking about teenagers who don't make the best decisions. Perhaps they were concerned about their big sister. Perhaps the husband was going to explode because he did get caught. We don't know since the OP didn't allow them to explain and sent them home. Worst case scenario, it was a bad call on the girl's part, but OP should at the minimum care for their safety. My goodness. Maybe the husband was about to explode because he was about to lose a big client. Men and women always work together, and some people are attractive. However, losing certain clients can mean losing thousands upon thousands of dollars. It isn't a joke, and what those girls did was extremely inappropriate behavior. I can only imagine that the client was probably angry and not interested in working any longer with the husband's company. Because personally, if that happened to me, I would have been beyond insulted and completely cut ties with him and his company. If an attractive person is working with another one, it's a reason to stalk them? Well, that's insanely inappropriate. Okay, I'm going to call it. You are the idiot. I mean, how does that even work? You jumped online after 8 in the evening, booked their flights, and took them to the airport? Like it was some kind of emergency? Leaving their parents to pick them up at what late hour? Just can't see how this was necessary. Regardless, I see nothing in this that justifies why you flat refused to let them say anything in their defense, or why they had to be sent home that very minute. Send them to bed and fly them home in the morning like a responsible adult. I, 27 female, have a very young foster daughter named May. She's been with me for around 8 months now, and I love her to pieces. I'm considering adopting her even. My sister, 31, Kate, recently suffered a pregnancy loss, which took a real toll on her marriage. She's getting divorced from her husband and has been staying with me because she can't bear to live with him right now. Kate, however, has been a horrible guest to May. Every time May asks her for something or talks to her, Kate will burst into tears or yell at her. Kate is a great sister to me, and I understand that she's grieving, but that doesn't mean she can lash out at May for simply existing. I've told her off multiple times for yelling at May, but it all came to a head when I confronted her this morning. May had asked Kate if she could move to get to the snack cabinet. Kate snapped at her, "Wait for a second, brat." I overheard from the living room, made Kate move out of the way, and told her to apologize to May. Instead, Kate burst into tears, saying that she just couldn't take having May here as a reminder of what she's lost. I told her she was a grown adult and should know better than bullying a child for her problems. I told May to go to her room quickly, and Kate and I got into a huge argument, and I told her if she couldn't take seeing my foster daughter, she could find somewhere else to stay. She left for our parents' house and then told them everything. I've been getting messages from her all day now. She tells me I'm a horrible sister and said that she was grieving and asked how I could put someone else's kid over hers, which I think is a disgusting thing to send to anyone. I think she's insensitive to my and my daughter's relationship. According to my mom, she's been crying for hours and won't stop talking about how I'm such a monster for not thinking of her feelings. Am I the idiot? I just don't think she has a right to yell at my kid because she lost hers. Not the idiot. I can't believe she's trying to use a child's love as an excuse to abuse a child. No, if she can't handle it, it is 100% on her to ensure that she doesn't enter situations where she becomes unsafe for others. Your parents are also beyond wrong. Protect your daughter. She's entitled to her feelings. However, she's not entitled to yell at a kid and call her a brat for simply existing. Your sister needs to be in therapy because lashing out at a child just because they're upset that they, exist? That they remind her of what she lost? That's crappy. I think you're well within your right to have asked her to move out. And hopefully, when she's gained some perspective, she'll have realized how horrible she was being. Someone else's kid? Yeah, this is your cue to stop talking to her for a while. If your parents think she's right, you have to stay away from them too. She also clearly believes that May is a secondhand child and doesn't consider her to be part of the family, despite your thinking about adopting her. I guess that this won't change with an adoption. No wonder she's getting a divorce. My son has a teddy that he takes everywhere and can't sleep without. He left it at his dad's house, and when it was time for him to sleep, he was inconsolable. It took me around 3 hours to get him to sleep, and eventually he just passed out from exhaustion. Then unfortunately he woke up at 1 a.m. and the crying started all over again. I had tried to call my ex multiple times to see if he could bring the teddy to our son from the time I noticed it was missing, but he hadn't responded. So I decided to go and get it because I couldn't get him to calm down again. When we got there, my ex was having a party, so I asked him for the teddy, and he told me I should have called him and he would have brought the teddy to us, which made me mad because I had. He then suggested we stay at his because he didn't trust me to drive home since he thought I looked half asleep. We ended up arguing because I felt like he was condescending, and I made a jab about if he had cared enough about our son, he would have answered the phone instead of drinking with his friends. Am I the idiot for going to my ex's house at 2 a.m. to get my son's teddy bear? His son wasn't even with him anymore. His drinking with friends that night has nothing to do with you, and you can't use that as an excuse just to attack him, especially insinuating that he doesn't care. You are the idiot, OP. Exactly. He probably legitimately didn't hear the call. He didn't know the teddy was there and didn't keep it from you intentionally. And he was worried about you driving and offered you a place to stay so you'd be safe. That wasn't him being unkind. He didn't want you to crash with your child in the car. His not answering multiple calls and texts from the mother of his child while said child is in her custody does have a bit to do with how much he doesn't care. You are not the idiot, OP. I understand that you don't expect your ex not to drink when he's not on duty, but we're just lashing out because he was like, OMG, why didn't you just call me? Are you sure you're okay? When you did call him repeatedly. He wanted to act like a caring person without having to back that up by actually caring. It's not that he always has to answer his phone, but he has to check it from time to time if he wants to say things like, you should have called me. Ex or not, if your child's other parent is called and texted multiple times, you pick up. You don't stop being a parent because it isn't your custody time, and it is crappy to say otherwise.